We're good. All right. Thank y'all for being here. You blink, man, and it's almost Halloween. But here we are. And recap Texas Tech. This will be pretty quick. Extremely disappointed, frustrated, to say the least, at the inconsistency. Kind of talk about on both phases. I will say this: thought special teams, we did some good things. I don't necessarily think that that we did anything to win the game. Just didn't present itself that way. But we played good enough to win on special teams. Starting with offense, just kind of what I said in the post game. If y'all were listening, and if you weren't after that game, trust me, I understand. But just a poor performance. Didn't play good enough at any position. You had four. I felt like the two keys to the game going into it were going to be, or three keys were going to be turnovers, rushing, and ability to score touchdowns in the red zone. We turned the ball over 4 times, and then just struggled to run the ball consistently. And we didn't win versus man coverage. And so if you don't do either of those, it's going to be a struggle, regardless of who you're playing. Defensively, we just made life way too easy on the quarterback. Had well over 100 yards, just throwing now screens, kind of catching throws. Quick game was easily accessible, and so and we were slow to fit on the run. And our fits were inconsistent, and so what that allowed them to do is get into a lot of third and fourth and shorts, which allowed them to stay on the field. You start getting in third and twos, and if you got a 4-down mentality, it makes it a pretty easy game to call. And then fourth and one, there's it's they were tempoing, and so we actually got lined up. Our tempo, it wasn't necessarily getting lined up. We've had some issues in the past getting lined up versus tempo. That wasn't the case on Saturday. We just didn't do a very good job tackling, and we made it way too easy on the quarterback. So that's kind of, and if y'all got questions, we'll take them here in a second on that game. But that's kind of synopsis. But it wasn't good enough. And so the way that we've talked it is we're back to work. I refuse to accept that's who we are. That's not who we were against Baylor here. And I refuse to accept that's who we are as a football team. Failure's temporary unless you accept it, and I refuse to accept it, and nobody that's coaching here is going to allow that to be who we are. We got a great opportunity this week. We got the number 1 team in the Big 12 coming in, number 7 in the country. They're undefeated. Really impressive team. And Sonny and I go back a good ways when we're both of us quite a bit younger. He actually coached me when I was at the University of Kentucky. He was a GA there under Hal Mumme. And he's done a great job. Year one, I think it's a great story, he went out to Cal, didn't work, and he went to SMU and built that into a top 20 program, and then he's came here to TCU and really done a good job, and taken a lot of the same pieces and turned it around. And so I think that's a credit to him and his staff. Offensively, just starting with offense, a lot of the same people that we've played for the last 3 years. Max Duggan is playing at an extremely high level. I think he's thrown maybe 1 interception all year. He's a dual threat. He's really strong. You get some dual threat guys that are really fast. He's fast, straight line fast. He's had multiple 50-yard runs over his career, but he's strong, man. So he can run through tackles as well, and his accuracy's really improved. So I think that's a credit to Garrett Riley and Sonny there. I think the next spot is the Miller at running back. They were a little bit running back by committee last year. They had Zach Evans, who's special, and Miller actually had more yards per carry than he did. And now that it's kind of his show, he's showing what he can do. He's got nearly 600 yards. He's a factor in the receiving game as well. He's a tough tackle because of his size. He's over 220 pounds. And then at wideout, Quentin Johnston's as talented as anybody in our league. And my assumption was he was probably a little banged up early, but the last 4-game stretch there, he's been pretty special. And we've got to know where he's at. They've got 2 really good slot receivers in Tate Barber and Darius Davis. And then their O-line, nobody talks about those guys a lot, but they played a lot of football. There's a lot of continuity up there, and they're playing at a high level too. And the key for them is they've been able to run the football. If you look at it, multiple games over 200 yards rushing. And so I think that's where it starts for them. Defensively, I think you got the completely different look than what they had under Coach Patterson for a long time, and they've came in and I think done a really good job. They're playing a 3-down front. You can tell the kids are playing really fast. It's from an alignment and an assignment defense. It's simple for them, but it's complicated to play against. They don't get out of position. The 3 down guys are doing a really good job of eating up your offensive line, and then the linebackers are playing really fast. I think that D. Winters and the Hodge, both their middle pieces are significantly improved from a year ago, and then the transfer from Navy, Hodges has been a really physical player for them. And then in the secondary, they've got a bunch of different pieces, and they do a good job of mixing up looks. Tomlinson's back. He's been an all Big 12 player here multiple years, so really good on that. And statistically, they've been good as well. And then in the special teams, Jordan Sandy's their punter. They haven't had any punts returned this year. It's all been fair catches, which tells you about his hang time. And then Darius Davis is probably the most dangerous returner in our league at the punt return and kickoff returner. The kid at Kansas State's really good too, but he took one to the house against us last year, and so we've got to be really good in our coverage units this week. So that's kind of who they are. A challenge for sure, but we're back at home, and we feel really good about playing here. It's a noon kickoff, and we will be better. And so with that, I'll take questions.
Neal, start with your injuries. You've got a lot. So
we got a lot. Yeah. Anybody in particular, Greg, that you want to know?
Some of the ones from this past week, from Milam, your running backs. Start with them, I guess.
And so I think that Wyatt, we'll see how he goes. Feel pretty good about him playing in the game. Tony will be out. Justin, we'll see as it goes. Gamitter will be out again. Who else on defense?
Charles Woods.
I think he's going to practice today, and he'll be available. And we're hoping he can play a few more plays. We've messed with his orthotics a little bit, so we feel a little bit better that as long as he does okay today and Thursday and Friday, then he'll play.
Limited.
Sean Martin played. He got injured against Baylor, came back, played, and he should be closer to full speed this week. Rashad Ajayi will be out. And then McCormick, we're hoping to get back this week. Yeah. Anybody, if there's anybody else that you got?
Ones I can think of. Keenan, you got?
Anybody?
With Gamitter, was that like a thing in practice leading up?
Nah, he got injured right at the end of Baylor game. Yeah, and so he missed last week. He'll be out this week, and we'll kind of see how he does moving forward. Lance, he'll be out this week.
With Gamitter's injury, what'd you think in watching film of Jordan White and Tomas Riemann?
Yeah, we split that about evenly, and there was some good and bad. Greg, they. I thought both of them had some good plays. Jordan gave up a couple pressures. One of them was unfortunate because he got stepped on, and so he gave up a hit, but he got stepped on. So just one of those unfortunate things. I thought for Tomas's first extended playing time versus a Big 12 opponent, I thought he handled himself well.
Yeah, you mentioned the travel roster after the game and the running back situation.
Yep.
How complicated is it to get 70 and making sure?
It depends where your roster's at, Mike. So. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, we had to carry another O-lineman with the addition of Sean Martin because we wanted to see how he was on Friday and Saturday, right? And it turned out he could play. So we brought one extra than what we normally would. And then you go to in the defensive backfield, we had multiple people that were kind of wait and see kind of game time decisions. So we took a couple more DBs, and so we would normally take 4 running backs, but because we added, some pieces at D-line and secondary wise, we only took 3, and there we were with 1, kind of finishing the game.
So do you have to get Jalen Anderson?
Yeah, Jalen Anderson. Yeah, he'll be up. And it's kind of, this is the way I think about injuries all the time is, I hate it for the guy that gets injured, right? You always, from a personal standpoint, you really feel for those people because they put so much time and effort into it. And so to get injured and not be able to reap those rewards playing in the games, like you really feel that. But at the same time, it's a great opportunity for whoever is behind them. And so Jalen Anderson's got an opportunity. C.J. Donaldson will start. We'll try to get Justin ready. If he's ready, he'll play. If he's not, then Jalen Anderson's got to be ready to go. And it's his opportunity to prove that he's ready as a redshirt freshman to play at this level. He's got the talent. He's got to put it together. And it's the same way. Like with Tomas, what a great opportunity for him. I hate it for James Committer, but what a wonderful opportunity for Tomas and Jordan White. To show that they're ready, both as redshirt freshmen. So that's kind of we talk about it. And as coaches, we can't accept a step back, and you got to be able to play, and the expectations don't change.
You've mentioned a few times during the year that it's hard in this day and age to keep the outside noise from coming in and keeping your players protected from that, shall we say.
Yeah.
How important is that this week, and how do you
Bob, it's the way it's a good question, first of all. Okay, so and I'm not trying to avoid it, is you just basically, it's about next. You just take this is next. I think that when you look at it, like I try to put it in a real perspective to them, right, is like this is important because we're investing a ton of time and resources into it. So it is important. But it's also if you're looking at things that are critical in your life, that's something that's not going bad. This is easily fixable compared to some other things, right? So it's about perspective in that regard, right? And for me, it's about how you play the game. You take the outcomes and put those aside. Like, how did you play the game? Like, what did your video look like? And for me, that's what we've got to focus on as a team. Our video's got to be better, and individually our video's got to be better, and it's got to represent who we want to be. And so that's the challenge for them, and that doesn't have anything to do with what people say on social media. That doesn't have anything to do with if you all write or put something on TV or radio or whatever. It has to do with an individual choice that you got to play better. We got to coach better. And so that's the approach with them. They hear it. Like I don't try to ignore it. But it doesn't help. It doesn't help you be a better player. It doesn't help us coach better. And so you got to move on. And hey, it is what it is. And let's get ready for TCU.
After the game, you said that you would go back and look and people weren't trying. You sound like you suspected that was going to be the case.
Yeah, I don't think we ran to the ball very good on defense in the fourth quarter. And this is where. All right, we had it 17-3, Mike. And we had 4 possessions offensively, and so we did not play. Great on defense in the first half. But I thought we did a really good job of kind of hanging in, right? And they ran 56 plays but only had 17 points. And then we had 3 drives offensively at the end of the first half to chip into that 17-3. And then we had the first drive of the second half. So we were in great position within those 4 drives to get back and get in the game, right? And we go pick, which weren't bad throws. They weren't bad throws. We had opportunities to make the play. We didn't make the play. But we went pick, and to me, that's where the game really went south. I thought defensively we didn't chase the ball as well as we needed to. We got consumed on some blocks in the fourth quarter. Some of that was who we had in there. And there's this, I think it's probably a natural tendency when things aren't going well, you try to do more to make a play. Well, that really makes it worse because especially on defense, if you get out of your gap or your eye discipline is not good in the secondary and because you're trying to make a play, you're trying to force a play, then what happens is you give up a bunch of plays. And that's what we did. Was our effort bad? No. Was it good enough? I don't think so either. But I think more of the ills on defense were, instead of doing our job, trying to make a play.
Knew you had trouble getting off press coverage
Yep.
Saturday, and that happened at Pitt, too. So how do you overcome that?
Well, I think the first thing is we got to give them better opportunity to move them around. We got to give them some chances. Did that some with the slots. Didn't do it with the outside guys. With Pitt, we didn't do bad. I don't think we did great, but we didn't do bad. I thought Bryce won. He was the one that won consistently. We really didn't have anybody that won consistently versus Tech. They're longer. They're both 6'2" plus guys that played. But to me, it's a fundamental issue. We didn't do a good job meeting their physicality, and we got to own our space. We got pushed off our line. I talk about getting pushed off our lines. We got pushed off our lines. So if you're getting pressed, from a player perspective, we got to do a better job meeting their physicality and using our hands. From a coach perspective, we got to do a better job moving the pieces around where they got a chance to get some free releases.
Neal, you mentioned, kind of flipping the page and moving forward, getting better. Does the opponent itself this week kind of help that in a way?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you don't play well, you're going to get embarrassed by this group, and they're playing. I think it's impressive. I brought this in here just they've played Kansas State, who was tied for first in the league. They win last week 38-28. And I want to say, were they down 28-10? Yeah, they were down 28-10. They beat Oklahoma State, who was in the top 10 in the country, tied for number 1 in the league, winning 43-40. They were down 10 in the second half. At Kansas, they win 38-31, and they fell behind in the second half in that game, and Kansas was undefeated at that point, and then they beat Oklahoma, who was had one loss and was ranked at the time. Those are the last 4 games, 3 of those being at home. And they showed that team showed real resiliency, and they've played well, especially in the second half. So does the opponent, the fact that they're 7th in the country, the fact that they're at the top of our league, if that doesn't get your juices flowing, you're probably in the wrong thing. You probably need to do something else.
Coach, Bob was talking about cutting out the outside noise. Just obviously, a program like West Virginia with so much history, you do have a lot of prominent alums that have very large platforms, in particular Pat McAfee on game day. Were you aware of what he said on Saturday, and was that brought up at all with the team or addressed in any regard? He was pretty critical.
No, I didn't see it.
The last 4 years.
No, I didn't see it. Can't speak on it because I didn't see it.
And then just to clarify also off of your comments after the game, there's nothing that warranted anybody being quote unquote benched off of effort.
No, we just didn't play. We didn't play as well as we needed to in the second half. When I say I haven't been on social media and I haven't watched TV, I really mean that. So I got no idea what Pat said.
The past couple games, kind of similar with its own ways, like slow starts, right? Recovered against Baylor.
You talking about
Last 3 guys.
Yeah.
Recovered against Baylor, but I'm wondering if maybe it's not as simple as home and away, but maybe it's more resilient at home, I guess. But have you seen things, whether it's those 3 games that are similar that can contribute to that, and then road in particular, anything about the road performances?
So the last 2 road performances have been poor. I think that's fair. Offensively, Baylor game probably, I would agree with you on Texas and Texas Tech with slow starts. But Baylor, we got off the field defensively on the first drive and then scored the first drive and went up, right? And so, but the 2 road games, that's for sure. We've had slow starts, right? We went 3 and out. Against Tech, we went, I think, 4 or 5 plays and had to punt first series versus Texas. So that is fair, and then we've got to look at what we're doing. We played it well on the road against Virginia Tech. Didn't play bad versus Pitt, but the last 2 haven't been good enough.
Is there any common theme you can figure out, or is it just, obviously it's harder to win on the road, but
Yeah, no, I think the last 2 opponents, they're good on offense, right? So I think let's give credit where credit's due. They're good. They're good on offense. It's they both hit us with some quite a bit of passing yardage. So I think those two things are factors. And then from an offensive standpoint, we just didn't play well. Like the whole game at Tech and the first half versus Texas didn't play well. And it's all for us. It's always going to be this year. It's going to be, can we establish a run? Because we're not good enough to be one-dimensional. So we've got to be able to run the football, and we've got to be, and we've got to make that happen.
Coach, you're talking about wanting to show what this program really can be or what it is. I mean, in all seriousness here, how big is this week?
I don't know. Like, we just need to play better. I don't ever look at like one game and say, oh man, like to me, we just need to play better. Like we played well against Baylor. That's a good football team. I think they'll go and run off some wins here and kind of show everybody that. But we just got to play better. That's the disappointing. Like I can deal with outcomes. Like I can, if they beat us and we played and we really played like we're capable of playing, they beat us. Hey, I can. Hey, it didn't go our way, right? But to play like that, to put that on video, like that we can't. We ain't gonna be about that.
How would you say the receivers play? Just an evaluation of the receivers, and then obviously JT is a really, really even keel guy, and I would imagine it's just a thought process. He'll just bounce back. It was first 3-pick game of his college career, so it's kind of a weirdness for him.
Yeah. So he's got to bounce back, right? And he is even keel. I don't think it'll really hamper him getting prepared for this week. He didn't play as well as he needs to play either. He was off a little bit. The one thing about those interceptions, they were all 3 one-on-ones. And when you throw into one-on-one, you got to have the expectation that your guy's going to come down with it or it's going to be incomplete. And so in those 3 instances, they were 3 picks. One of them fell down, and then the other 2 just made plays. And we've got to be able to either break those up or make the plays. As far as the receivers, we got to be better. There were some things that we did well. I thought Sam James, he had a drop, but he played well. Played a really good field game. And that's 2 weeks in a row that he's played really good field games. But we've got to be more consistent. I think the receivers in our team as a whole, we've got to be more consistent.
You've beaten him 3 straight years, different coach, but you said same players. What's the dynamic there as far as do you throw it all out? You probably do every year, I guess.
Yeah, it's all different. It's different. Our guys know that. Our guys are aware of that. We'll be confident going in. I don't think it's a deal where, the thing that's hard to sit up here and kind of explain is like the mentality for people, most of you all sitting in here and myself is different than that it is for an 18 to 22-year-old athlete. It's just kind of, boom, it's next, because that's how their whole life is you go from practice to the next practice, and you have workouts, you have dinner, you know what I mean? Everything's so structured. And so the mentality is next, right? And so they're not sitting around like lamenting Saturday as much as probably I am or some of the coaches are. It's kind of what's next, right? And so they're going to go in. We'll put a really good plan together. They're going to get ready to play this week, and they'll play with a lot of confidence. And I have full belief that we'll play a lot better. But they're aware of that, but that's not something, Bob, that I'll address with them really.
Coach, there's a good group of running backs in the Big 12 this year. Obviously everyone knows about Robinson at Texas, probably Vaughn at K-State. Oklahoma always has a good one, it seems like. Miller at TCU, is he maybe the best one that no one's really –
Nobody's talking about him as much as he deserves. Yeah. And I kind of felt like the same way last year. Everybody talked about Zach Evans, and he was a really good player, but Miller was every bit as productive, and he's a really hard tackle, and he kind of wears you down. I think I saw Sonny saying something about that too, is he kind of wears you down as you go, because he is a load, and that's a little bit what CJ does too as he gets going, because those big backs, they're hard to tackle, and they lean on you for that whole game. The later it gets, the more carries, the more times you have to put your face on it. It's hard. But he's really good in the pass game too. I don't think that gets talked about as much. He's a really good player, really good all around, and I don't think he gets the attention that he deserves. That's fair.
I'm kind of wondering, I mean, obviously Duggan gets a lot of attention, but I mean, how much of a key is Miller? Right?
No, he's huge. They've been able to rush the ball for 200-plus yards in a lot of these big wins. The thing that Max Duggan's doing is taking care of the football. He is taking care of the football. If you win the turnover margin, you got a chance most of the time in our league. If you go back and look at who wins and who loses, that turnover margin usually tells a story.
I noticed this offensively, 8 of their 11 guys have started every game. And defensively, 10 of their 11 guys have started every game. That's kind of an oddity this late in the season to have that kind of.
I think when you go on some of these special runs, that happens a lot. I think that's, and they're on a really, they got a chance to have one of those special runs. And if you look at it, a lot of times when you do that, it's because you're able to stay healthy.
Neal, on screen passes, just curious, like what you guys saw to kind of go to that as often as it did. Maybe it's checks, I don't know. And then perhaps the difference between what you guys were trying to do and what they were trying to do, whether it's offense or defense, and maybe playing too far off, or like you said, not being aggressive enough.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't think we were aggressive enough on defense. I think that's fair. As far as us on the screens, that was something that that was something going into the game that they had really struggled with. And we've been really good, in the screen game. Going into that, we were like plus 10 on every screen that we threw. And we felt like they were going to pressure and play man. That's a good answer versus pressure man is going to the screens. And we didn't do a good enough job of getting – we were really close. Not that that's what people want to hear, but like the first play of the game, we kind of get shoestring tackled. Sam had 2 positive ones. The other one he had – the ball was behind them a little bit. Those are bang-bang plays, and they were really close to being big ones, but they weren't, And, like, we had some big ones versus Baylor and some blitz looks. And so but that's something that we believe in, and that's something that matched with Tech had really struggled with that. Their D-linemen weren't necessarily a D-line that retraced, and you want to run it versus those type of guys. But we just didn't execute them very well.
TC runs a lot with big guys, small guys, tight ends too. I know it has to be better, but what changes do you make?
Yeah, so we got to play closer to them. I think that's the first thing is we can't make this an easy catch throw. Because what that does is kind of like a basketball player who gets fouled early and gets to make some free throws, or you get a layup, and then you're kind of in rhythm. That's the same thought process for a quarterback. If you just give them layups, and then they get in a rhythm and they feel like their confidence builds. They can make all the throws, right? So we got to make it harder on the quarterback. We didn't make it hard enough on the quarterback on Saturday.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep. No, thanks.